Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today. My name is Derek Murray. I'm the Senior Client Portfolio Manager, and I am also your host for today. And with us, we have, first of all, Kelly Swails, who is the Director of Clinical Services here at Census, and also Jacob Long, who is our Business Development Manager and Sales Engineer as well for Census. So, like I said, I just wanted to welcome everyone and just give you a little bit of background. So some of you might be asking, what is CtUC? CtUC is our Census Technologies Users Conference. And the reason we put on this conference is for you, our customers. We want to show you and give to you everything that you need in order to accomplish using the software optimally that we provide, and also to give you educational benefits, as well as all of our latest products and services that we have to offer. So it benefits you, and that's our purpose for having CtUC each year, is to benefit you. Of course, because of the pandemic, we didn't really have a CtUC last year, and everyone understands, the situation that we were in around the world. But we were really, really happy that we could come this year and at least virtually bring this to you so that you would have some access and understanding as to what was new on the census front. So that's why we're here, and we're just happy to be here today. So we'll go ahead, as I said before, we're wrapping up CtUC today and answering possibly some questions that you weren't able to ask or that we weren't able to answer previously in our presentations last month. So that's what we're going to do today. Just have a forum where we can talk about some of those questions that you may have and give you some answers to those. So first of all, let's go ahead and we have some questions here that, Kelly, I'll start with you. As far as CensiTrac utilization, the life cycle of a container. So, Kelly, how do we schedule a utilization visit?
Yeah, so if anyone is interested in a CensiTrac utilization assessment, which is what my team and I do, they would call their client manager. Everyone at Census, or everyone who has CensiTrac, is assigned a client manager. You can always reach out to them. The other option is to call our service desk at 888-877-3010. Don't expect everyone to remember that number. When you log into CensiTrac, look at the bottom of your screen, kind of in the center on the right-hand side. You'll see that phone number, and you can always call.
Awesome. So, Kelly, also, can a QF label be made for any event besides pre-cleaning, such as sharps?
Yes. So when they say QF, I'm assuming they mean quality feedback. With that, think about, yes, you can start out in decontam. And I like to kind of take this in baby steps. So let's get your decontam using it, then assembly, then sterilization, then sterile storage. So think of all those areas that, yes, if you're in decontam, you're going to have your no pre-clean, sharps in the container. Come to the assembly side, and maybe you have one that's for something that wasn't disassembled, or you have for something that came through dirty. On the sterilization, as they're checking, before I put that load in, I always look and make sure all my locks are secure and they're present, make sure my tape is secure and present, things are stacked on that sterilizer cart correctly. So you could create one there if there's an issue. Then we'll go to sterile storage. Same thing there. I have facilities that they do a walkthrough every day and just kind of eyeball and inspect everything on the shelf. So there would be a prime opportunity to create that quality feedback one that says hole in wrapper, broken tape or broken locks, something in the wrong location. So that way you're creating these events, but think of it as they aren't to get anyone in trouble. They're learning opportunities.
Yes.
So can definitely use them even after the OR. So
awesome. So is the barcode scan to report a quality event, is that a new feature?
It is. Yep. So that is a new feature. I love it. I think it's like one of the greatest things ever because you can just scan that barcode, scan that container, scan that barcode. So it's like I'm creating an event, I'm documenting what it is, and I'm closing an event. And you create an event in less than 5 seconds.
Seems very, very easy and simple to use for our users.
Yes.
So by using the scanning for quality feedback, are customers still able to still add notes?
Yes. Yep. So when you create a quality feedback event with the barcode, it creates the same form as if you were going to workflow, quality feedback, and documenting everything in there. So with that, this is just kind of a shortcut. You can definitely still go in and document the responsible person, your notes. So what education occurred, kind of how we're going to prevent this in the future. Anything you need to add in there can all be documented.
That's just 1 minute on that one. It would have to be done through the report, because I've had a couple customers come back and ask me just where to do it. So yeah, like Kelly said, you can do all the exact same stuff. It's just got to be accessed through the report once the event's created.
In addition to that, too, you can add a picture. So love the picture. A picture speaks 1,000 words. So I can sit here and tell you this wasn't pre-cleaned, but if I have a picture and I'm like, here's the proof, even better.
Perfect. Thank you both for that. So when we talk about containers within a database, hands-on container, seminar features, functions, and reporting, how do you add the serial number once the function is on? So
that is controlled as far as having that in access levels. So access levels, inventory, containers, permissions. So you only want to give that access to those that need it. And then from there, when I go into my containers, I will locate my container. So if it's cystoscope number 4, I'm going to go to cystoscope number 4. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click on edit container. So then from there, you'll see a little box that says serial number. So I can type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, save, and now that is linked. Now, one thing with that is you want to make sure you add that serial number to your container label, because otherwise it's going to be kind of behind the scenes and staff won't necessarily see that. And so with that, call your client manager, call the service desk. There again, they can configure that label to get that serial number to print on there. And if you have a container that doesn't have a serial number, it will just be blank. So not an issue.
Okay. Awesome. And you kind of alluded to that a little bit in one of the other things is, what is the sequence to find certain items?
That's kind of a broad question. So are you looking for a container?
Yes.
You would go to inventory, containers, in the search bar, type in the most unique word. If you're looking for a product, you go to catalog, products, type in that most unique word or the product number. The awesome thing with that is you can then click on where is it used. So you know that this is in this set, but I need this instrument because it was contaminated during the procedure. Where else can I find this instrument? It's going to tell you what containers it's in. You can go to the shelf and get one.
Perfect.
And then scopes, kind of the same thing. Inventory, scope module, loaners, look on your active cases and the such. So
carts, same thing. Yes.
Yep.
All right. So in CensiTrac utilization to reduce, we're looking at reducing IUSS processing, immediate use sterilization. Is there a way we can put an alert on a container or tray to alert the tech that this container can't be used, cannot be IUSS, cannot be, as you know, as they say, bad word, flash. Once that's right. Cannot be. It can't be IUSS once scanned into an IUSS cycle. Is there a way we can put an alert?
So Yep. Okay. So you now have the option, if you go into administration and settings and you look at your workflow, there is a box in there that you can check that says reject load with conflicting cycle requirements. So if I have this set up, if this is only an IUSS sterilizer, which many times they are, because they're just small sterilizers like in the OR area, and that is set up that it's only IUSS, and if I have a set that can't be IUSS, and I don't have that in there as one of my sterilization methods, I'm going to get a pop-up.
Okay.
Along with that, and that's one great way to do it. But what I also recommend, in which may be more user-friendly for the staff, but they have to pay attention to their screen on CensiTrac, is in that container itself, you can add in sterilization instructions. So if I go to scan this to a sterilizer, and every time I scan to a sterilizer, I'm going to get a pop-up saying, kind of a FYI or a reminder, this cannot be IUSS. Sure.
Okay. So can a quality feedback event be created and attached to one tray?
Yes. So, think of that quality feedback module, those barcodes, that's all free text. So you can use that and create it for any kind of event you want. So one thing I want to keep in mind, though, is that if your one trays as a quality event, or if that's your way of tracking it, then yes. If it is so that you want to, always make sure they're scanned as you document it. But if you're trying to document and learn just how many one tray loads you have or how many IUSS loads you have, I recommend looking at your sterilization methods and setting that parameter in there. Yes. So use that IUSS 274 and 1 or whatever it is, and then run the report to see what all was ran on that cycle. Because staff may forget to scan that barcode, whereas they're selecting that IUSS cycle, they have to select a cycle. So then you're more apt to get correct information.
Okay, great.
And then keep in mind, I can scan that one tray to my load, but I want to also document what was in that one tray.
Okay.
It's not going to do me any good to just know that, the container went through, what was in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So when we look at documentation, which is, of course, vital, quality audits for all loads created in CensiTrac, can you remove the temperature, time, and dry boxes so staff cannot put in different numbers?
Yes. So a few things with that. In your administration reprocessing machines, locate that group. So if it's your steam sterilizers, your STERAD, it's an AER, you're going to click on that Actions tab and then go and look at your load details. There's where you can control what people are seeing. So if it is STERAD, I don't need to have temperature, exposure time, and dry time. If it's an AER, I don't need that, but I may want to add at the bottom some of that MEC information. But more importantly, in that same Actions tab, where you click on Load Details, you want to click on Cycles. Uncheck the boxes that just say the plain preback, the plain gravity. Then only check boxes of what you have available for them to use. So look at your sterilizers, write down, or to use your phone, take a picture of all the screens that are on your sterilizers, all those temperatures, and then go in and only allow those to be on there.
Okay.
And then that way they're not creating all these different loads.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So can we rotate the image once the tech scanned it in, if they scan something in upside down?
No, at this time we can't. But this is where, when I'm training, I always tell everybody, if you scan an image in, look at it before you save it. Because what I see many times is if you have a document scanner and you close that lid, as the air escapes, it moves that sterilizer tape. That sterilizer tape is pretty lightweight and it's small. So it'll move and now it's cut off. Or I look at this image and I'm like, oh yeah, I can read this. I know the ink is a little faint, but I can read it. Well, anytime you scan something, you lose a little bit of clarity. So now I scanned it in, I may have lost clarity where it's not readable. So I need to quick go over, put a new ink cartridge in my sterilizer, and reprint that tape.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you're always, always, always viewing anything you scanned in to make sure it is correct.
Kind of little proactive action there to ensure.
Yes, because once you put another load on that sterilizer, you're probably not going to be able to get a duplicate tape to print out.
Okay.
And now you're kind of stuck with, what do I do?
Yes, exactly. All right. Is there a report for this data so we can identify missing info quicker?
Yes. So there are reports you can run. A sterilization compliance report. When you're in workflow and load list, you can also click on indicators to view and see. You can click on these results to see if like the pass, fail, the cycle are missing. So there's some different ways to do it. The one thing I recommend, no matter which way you do it, is still look at the load. You want to make sure that Bowie Dick, that there are sterilization parameters in there.
Yes.
When you look at your biological, you want to make sure that you're seeing start in red, because that means they're using the load indicators module. If you don't see start in red and you just see someone's name, that means they're just putting it in, and then afterwards they go in and document it. And that load indicators module it's a safety feature that I can't just go and put something in and then document it before it's ready.
Okay.
Or a same safety feature that make sure your lot numbers match up. And then we talked about your image. You want to view that image. Make sure that sterilizer tape, if it says 274 and 45, make sure the cycle they selected is 274 and 45.
Okay. All right.
So yes, there's different options, but I still recommend viewing. I've seen where someone has put in a lot number for a Bowie Dick, but they kind of typed in a lot of different things. So like the Bowie Dick, lot number, the expiration date, product. Yeah, there was quite a bit of information in there. So.
All right.
And then you didn't know which one was a lot number.
Exactly. It's all together. Makes sense. And lastly, Kelly, can I make a load results form different for IUSS versus a terminal steam sterilization load?
Okay, so when I hear can I make a form, my first question is going to be to someone: are you documenting on paper? Because you want to be electronic.
Exactly.
Save our trees. Be 100% electronic. Much easier to find information than digging through boxes in storage. So not quite sure what they're meaning for that. But as I mentioned, when you're doing IUSS, select that cycle.
Yeah.
So if I'm selecting IUSS 274 and 1, IUSS 270, 10 and 1, whatever it is that you're using, then if I need that information, I can run that report.
Yes.
Along with that, it's the same documentation, whether I'm doing an IUSS or a terminal, and you don't want too many different methods because then people are going to forget.
Right.
We're human, and that human error factor comes into place.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've seen for that, I think they might be referring to the low details. And if they are, then you would just want to create two different sterilizer groups. So you wouldn't want to put all your steam sterilizers in one group. You'd want to have like an IUSS group and then your terminal steam groups. That way you can have different load details. And that way your forms can be different. So like, I think what immediately comes to my mind is like turning on like reason. So like, why did you run this cycle? Which definitely applies to IUSS, but wouldn't really apply to terminal steam sterilization. So you'd want to have like a reason field and like the case ID field maybe for your IUSS group, but then you could make those disappear for your terminal, your SPD, your primary sterilizers. I think that might be what they're alluding to there.
I think you're right. It kind of looks that way. No, perfect. Thank you both for that. All righty. Let's transition here, and we'll go to you, Jacob.
All right.
Here for some of our questions. So when we look at asset traceability, case cards, case tracking, and the OR scheduler interface, can you manually add to the needs expedite list?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you can. There's a couple concerns there. The way that you can make assets show up on your priority lists, whether that's in decontam or assembly or the sterilization priority list, you can go ahead and create that as a container setting. So it would apply to the container type, and you could set at the bottom of those form fields when you go to edit a container type, you can set it to be always stat or always expedite. And that way they would always show up in some sort of priority list, since we expect them to always have some sort of stat turnover, priority attached to them.
Okay.
Now, you can't really add cases to the OR scheduler since it is an interface. Everything it's going to show as far as your case schedule is going to be dependent on whatever your EMR platform is showing. So you can't go in and like manually add like an emergent case. That wouldn't be something that you could do, but you can have at least permanent settings attached to containers. That way, they're just always a high priority, whether that's stat or expedite.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
So how do we get consumables to populate from the preference cards?
That's a great question. That's probably from an older customer too. So the OR scheduler interface is it's always being developed. So when it first went live, we didn't have as many types of assets that would be able to feed over. So just recently, one of the latest developments for our interface for the OR scheduler is the ability to have consumables feed over. So as far as how, it's really just getting a hold of us and letting us know, because it would require us to work with you, work with your EMR analysts if if that's a role that would be involved. And we would get those parties together and kind of create a project plan to get that done. It probably wouldn't be too difficult as long as, local preference cards are accurate. I know sometimes that's a challenge. Sure. But if our preference cards have the consumables that we want on there, it would really just be us adjusting the message that our interface uses to show those consumables. Because that's why I'm assuming it might be an older customer, because it might just be feeding over containers. So they might have had the interface before we developed the ability to feed over consumables and things. So it really just be how, just get a hold of us, get a hold of your client manager, and we can get that ball rolling to make that functionality appear.
All right, will do. Also, do we have to have the OR interface to upload doctor preference cards in the schedules?
Yeah, you would. The scheduler module, it's not very interactive if there's no interface live. In fact, you don't even see it. So there's really no way to build a preference card, like the scheduler interface shows without it. And there's really no modules designed to do that manually. So having the preference cards feed over would be dependent on that scheduler interface.
When we look at capture and communicate, documentation and safety, when it comes to messages and quality feedback, are all messages recorded in the reporting module?
Yeah, that's another good one. So messages actually don't go anywhere as far as reporting. Your message history doesn't go anywhere, but there's no report, I don't believe, that'll show those. But if you go into the messaging module, there's like a show all button that you can click, and you'll see all the withdrawn messages from the past. There's not a report that's going to show you the messages that have been created, but within the module itself, there is a management portion of it as far as just historical, record keeping and being able to access those.
So speaking of withdrawn messages, when a message is withdrawn, where does the message go if I need to find it?
Kind of just hides. So there's a couple of different things you can do, right? You can withdraw a message or you can delete a message. They both have one same end result. They will both stop that message from relaying. But the difference is if you delete a message, it'll kind of archive itself. If you withdraw a message, it'll still be visible. So if it's a message that you want to turn on again, like if it's something that's like, let's say, monthly training, you're going to use that message every single month. So you don't want to delete it. You're just going to withdraw it. And then, the first of the month, next month, you'll just reactivate it or something. So when you withdraw them, they just kind of hide there. And when you delete them, they kind of get archived. So they're both in the module itself. But really the big thing is just to remember both of them will make those messages stop working essentially until you go back and reactivate them or resend them.
So when it comes to quality feedback, what's the best practice for utilizing quality events?
Yeah, it's best practice. I would say it's always dependent, I guess, on your facility and what you're looking for, right? Someone's best practice might be someone else's worst. But one of the things I've seen that's always really effective is having barcodes that are relative to your area. You don't want to have like barcode sheet that has a bunch of OR events in Deacon TAM. There's no point to having like a missing locks barcode when you're in Deacon TAM. So one thing to use think about when you're deploying those barcode sheets is just make it make sense for the end user. Make the barcodes sheets easy to use. You don't want to put too many barcodes on one sheet because you could accidentally double scan and stuff like that. And then another effective kind of strategy when using that module is to define a time to review your events. It's one thing to create them, but it's another thing to actually go through and audit them and kind of see what the data is telling you. And so I know we have some customers that do that. Like they'll have like a monthly huddle between leadership of the departments, and they'll go, what are all of our open events? And they'll see, we had 9 sharps this month. That's down from the 12 last month. So not only just creating the events, but setting aside the time and dedication to actually review what's being created. So you can start to kind of make a picture out of whatever events are being created, whether those are negative or positive too. Something I like to mention as far as also a best strategy is just never forget that they don't have to be punitive all the time. They can be positive events. Like I've seen them used for like QA checks, even like kudos. Like I've seen them used for kudos before. Like, there's certain surgeons or certain specialties where a tray has to be laid out a very certain way. And it's a lot for an SPD technician to remember how to like put together a complex tray really well. So you can always use quality events too. Like this tray was perfect. There was nothing wrong with it. Do this every single time, please. So you can even use them for like eye wash station checks. The utility is kind of endless as far as best practices, but those would probably be my 3 things. Is just make it easy to use, set aside time to actually review the events, and then just remember that it's completely scalable. You can really kind of make it fit whatever utility you need it to. Yeah.
That's perfect. A lot of times.
And if I can add to
that,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I would say if I can add to that too. So I have customers that are creating exception reports with that. So that anytime there is something that happens today, let's just say I'm going to have that sent to me in a report. So when I come in at 7 o'clock in the morning, that report was sent to me at, let's just say 3 a.m. and it's sitting there waiting. So now when I go up to OR huddle, I can bring it with me and say, hey, we had 3 no pre-cleans yesterday, and they can look and they'll know exactly the sets. They'll know who the tech was, and then they go right to that person and do education right then and there. Because think of it as, okay, so if I'm doing that education right then and there, you're kind of, taking care of it rather than wait until a month end or quarterly report. And what if that person was new and didn't know where there were more bottles of spray?
Right.
Well, they're going to find out today, so that won't happen again.
Exactly. Really helps managers, techs to be more proactive in their communication, which is really important. Really, Jacob, what you brought up too about quality events and using them in a positive light, many times we always do think of that as negative. So that is another really good way to use those quality events. Yeah. So awesome.
I got the idea from like QA checks at a customer. Actually, they used them for every month. They had to go pop, like 5% of their inventory and just make sure it was being assembled correctly. And so they did that, like QA check pass, and then they would link it to the technician, right? So then you can say, in a 12-month period, technician Steve, every single one of his containers were good. Wow. And then you can use that to see it from a completely different perspective too. So yeah, it's always nice to keep that in mind.
All right, let's go into another section here as far as administrative fundamentals. Jacob, for you. Once deleted, will they still show up in reports and records?
Say.
I know it's kind of a big question, and we may need to qualify who they is and include that. So that is kind of a vague question when it comes to administrative fundamentals. Not quite sure myself on what exactly is meant by that.
I'll take a stab at it.
Okay, go ahead.
So it's actually kind of a running joke. I remember when I would implement, nothing ever gets deleted. You can't break CensiTrac. So if you accidentally delete something, it gets stored somewhere. Like I've deleted locations on accident and they're back there. They're in the background. Now that doesn't mean you can always undelete things. Sometimes once you delete something, like it may be like backed up in your data, but there's not really any way to visibly see it. So as far as records and reporting go, I think it just depends on what we're referring to in terms of deleted. Like if you discard a scope on accident, you can always bring it right back. Like if you delete a container on accident, you can bring it right back. But like if you delete an indicator image, you're going to have to rescan something. You can't bring that back. So it really depends on what record we're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly.
But when it comes to the actual assets, like the actual asset management piece of it, you can't delete anything. We don't. I don't even think we use the language. I think we use discard in the solution.
Okay.
So once again, it kind of depends on what we're referring to as will they still show up.
Okay. Right. No, that's great. I think.
And if I can add to that, so when I'm doing assessments, one thing I look at is users and access levels. And I'll go on site and I'll see that they have 500 active users, but they told me they only have 30 employees. So what they're afraid is like, no, because if I delete them, then I'll lose that information in my sterilization records as to who documented it. And I'm like, no. So once something it's done, it's date and time stamped, it's in there, it's not going anywhere.
All right.
So you can totally go in and delete them, so then they no longer have access.
Got it.
And so they're, a lot of customers are very happy to hear that.
Yes.
We can get that.
But the history is retained. Yes.
Yes.
That's really important to know.
And the same goes for even the assets. Like even if you delete a scope, you're still gonna have the records. Like if a scope is damaged beyond repair and you've got to replace it, you can, quote unquote, delete it, but your records aren't going to go anywhere. And the same goes for all the other assets like containers and things.
All right. Great. Thank you both. Is there something in the works currently to attach pictures to competency?
I hope so. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I keep my tabs up. I try to work with the development team pretty closely to see what enhancements they're working on. As far as that particular one, I'm not sure. We could always follow up with that team and probably get a more solid answer. But that would be a neat feature. And I've gotten that question once or twice before. Primarily for like the IFUs they're related to. I think that's when I get the question most frequently. Like when a competency is built out for an IFU, they want to have that attached to it. I think that's the couple scenarios I've had that presented with. But it might be in the works. We can find out.
Yes, we sure can.
Yeah.
All right. When it comes to developing reports, does Census have an admin user manual?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend requesting it because it's huge. We'd probably have to use like OneDrive or a Dropbox to send you a giant PDF. We will though. We will if you ask. Essentially, what the user manual is it's the help guides that are already embedded in the solution. But if you do want the master one, we can either send it to you, or I believe it's also on the portal. So if you have access to the Census portal, you should have access to all the user guides there as well. And they will be like a consolidated form. So if you don't have access to the portal, just let your client manager know, call the support desk, and we'll be able to get you access to the portal. If you did have access and you haven't used it in a while, give it a shot. If not, you should be able to reset your password. But for those of you that haven't used it, the portal's just at our website. It's nothing additional. You just go to census.com, and there's a way to get to the portal there. And the portal will have help guides and things like that. But essentially, once again, they're kind of just carbon copies of the embedded guides that are already in the application. But if you do want a consolidated way to get it, the portal's probably your best bet.
So this is kind of a long question. Is there a way to create a report that counts loads, biological indicators, Bowie-Dick tests, and issues for the month under summary loads?
All right. So it was loads, biological, Bowie-Dicks, and issues.
Yes.
Yeah. The load indicator results summary report is going to do that for you. So if you go to the sterilization category and expand it, you're going to have a report there called load indicator results summary. And that's the one that's going to be your best bet for that one, because you're going to be able to enable all those features. It'll show you your Bowie-Dicks. It'll show you your biological indicators. And you get the same field options for all of those as far as like quote unquote issues. You can either have like was the BI read or not? So did somebody even give it a pass or fail? And then you can see if it's a pass or fail, or you can see if it's unresulted. So it'll kind of capture whatever issue might be as far as documentation, whether it was a failure, whether it was documented incorrectly or just not documented. And it is a summarized report, so it's really great for reconciliation too. So it's actually one of the reports I would use pretty frequently when I would implement. Like if I pulled it up and I noticed one sterilizer had one unrecorded Bowie-Dick for the month, I could click that sterilizer and then I could find, which load that was, and I could just in the report open up the cycle documentation.
Okay.
So the load indicator results summary report is going to do that for you.
All right.
And it can be kind of tricky. There's a lot of fields in that report. So I know we always encourage this too. If y'all need a hand putting those together, please don't hesitate to give us a ring or an email. Yeah. We'd be happy to get, we always are happy to help our customers build the reports to get them just the way they like them. Right. So if you can't, if that one's a little tricky, just please feel free to reach out.
Kelly, back to you. And of course, yeah. Jacob, as you and Kelly have both been doing, feel free to jump in. But Kelly, I'll direct these next set of questions to you. Now we're looking at observing the complexity, understanding the life of a scope. Can you add a Ruhoff ATP check to the group settings?
Yes. So so Ruhoff is a brand. So whether it's a 3M, whatever brand of ATP, yes, that you're using. Yes. So for example, on ScopeTrack Advanced, when you are documenting your processing steps, you're selecting, like, what is this process? Is it a leak test? Is it an ATP test? Is it a residue test? So I would select then my ATP test. And then when I click the box, I'm going to get a pop-up where you record in that numeric value. So an ATP test is not just a simple pass-fail.
Okay.
It's a numeric value that you enter in, and then hospitals will set their policy to say anything above 10 is a fail, anything below 10 is safe, or whatever number they have.
That was actually that was going to be the next question. What is an ATP test, which you've answered there? So
so that ATP test, so that's adenosine triphosphate. I hope I said that.
I'm glad you said it and not me.
ATP. And what that is just after you clean something, it's then you're swabbing it, and then you're doing a test to see, okay, how many germs are left over. So kind of put in easy terms.
All right. Perfect. Can you add multiple pictures in the media?
For scopes, yes. Yep. So, great thing. What I like this for is a couple things. When you look at those pictures, when you are hooking your scope up, let's say to your Medivator connector, there's a whole diagram telling you like what connector to use, and then here's how it attaches. Great way to attach that. So now I don't have to go over to a wall, go through a book. I can just have that picture there. Yeah. Along with that, many times there's pictures on how do I clean this specific scope. So all those pictures can be added. Yeah. And then everyone has that information right there at their fingertips.
Awesome. Great. So in understanding the life of a scope, when it comes to hands-on scope processing, there's a question here that says, I turned on my scope priority list in scope processing, and there are a lot of expired scopes that we don't have anymore. So what do I need to do?
Think of it as you need to clean up that inventory. Good thing about this, maintain this, and then you're going to have a good, accurate inventory. And it's always going to be accurate, because the minute you forget to take something out that has left your facility, eventually it's going to turn red. Yeah. So you want to go into inventory, scopes, click on by disinfection date. And then in there, you're going to find your scope. And you may see, and there again, when I'm doing assessments, I'm looking at this and I'll see inventory data back to 2009, 2010. And so it's a matter of just clicking on that, changing the status to discarded and save. But you're not done. You've got to go into inventory and maintenance and then approve that discard. So not just anyone can go in and discard a scope.
Yeah.
Now, at my old facility that I worked at, we did repair exchange. So if this scope broke, I sent it out, they sent me a new one.
Okay.
And those serial numbers, then you put in that new one. Well, I did have where a scope came back. I'm trying to enter it in. It's like, this already exists. And I'm like, no, it's brand new. No, it doesn't. Well, I had to think about what I'm doing. So I just went into my discarded, found that scope, and reactivated it. So, and then you'll keep that, you'll keep that list beautiful with that priority, so that you know what needs to be reprocessed today or over the weekend. So then that way no one gets called in to process something.
Okay. Is there a way to scan all of the load contents to a location?
So that sounds more like a sterilizer load.
That does.
Because with a scope, like when an AER, you just process one scope at a time. Yeah. So I would think they're meaning more of that whole for sterilization. Yes, you can, if you're moving it to cool down. So if it comes out of the sterilizer, when I go to document it, that pass fail, that cycle, I can click that cool down button. I now move that whole load to cool down with one click.
Got it.
And then from there, I know time when I need to cool down. As far as scanning a whole load to a location, even if you could, I wouldn't recommend it, because you want to look and see what's on that load.
Right.
You want to look and see, okay, because even though I know, oh, nope, it's all OR sterile storage stuff, because Jacob actually put something on there for the clinic, and I didn't realize it when I was scanning. I scanned it, so it's documented, but you don't know. And I was safe to scan it exactly where it belongs.
All right. So the last question here, and this is about scopes again. Our hang time for lumen scopes is 12 days and non-lumen scopes are 30 days. The priority list tells me my non-lumens are expired, but they aren't. How do I fix this?
So awesome question. I get this a lot. And so what you do is you go into catalog products, find that scope that is non-lumen. Scroll to the bottom, and in there it's going to say that hang time, scope, shelf life.
Yes, I think
you see, you'll know when you see it. And enter in that 30. Now the same can be used. I see facilities that are using the scope processing module to document like a flexible cystoscope, that cleaning and that leak test. And it doesn't get disinfected, but they're using it to document that. Then it goes over to the assembly side and it gets sterilized in your STERAP. Because it's terminally sterilized, it more than likely does not have a hang time. Well, so in there, what you'd want to do is you would want to then enter in some kind of a number. It takes up to 3 digits. And so I have customers that will enter in either just 999 or they'll put in 365. Knowing flexible cystoscopes get turned over, you will never probably ever have a flexible cystoscope sit on your shelf for more than a year. And as they said, and if we do, something's wrong, I want to be alerted because we need to look at it and figure out what's going on.
That's it.
Yeah. And I said, well, really, you could probably put even 60 days or 30 days because something's going on. But yeah, so there's that comes in there. And when you go into a product, that will then override your normal settings of that 12 days.
Well, that is all the questions that I have for this session. Kelly, Jacob, thank you very much. I know you guys gave some great answers to some everyday things that our customers are experiencing. And I know this will be very, very beneficial for them. So thank you both. And I want to thank everyone else out there for joining us as well today. If you have any questions, as we said before, you can always contact our service desk. You can also contact your client manager and ask those questions that are looming, that seem to be plaguing you, that you need answers to. And we will definitely be glad to help you with those. One of the great things is that CtUC will be back next year. Okay. So we are looking forward to it as well, and looking forward to seeing you. And so in the meantime, let us know, what are some things that you want to see? You can place those items in the chat, or you can always contact us at census.com, and we'll be glad to hear your feedback. So thank you very much, everyone. We really appreciate your business, and we look forward to seeing you in person next year at CtUC. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.